in the figure a lot. So you can see he always dress quite fit and fitting. He always has fitting dress, right? And he is to deliver his C10 speech the second time. One gentleman over time.
I'm lazy.
Let's see. Okay, so when can hear the story again, right? I remember it's a quite touching story. Let's welcome and the old ginger Zhang Ling. Oh, but handsome and sexy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a new era. By 2018, aged population will be over 40%. Taiwan by then will become an aged society. You know, everybody of us will grow old someday. I like to focus on the aged people because they reflect our future images. By looking at them, you will understand what you will be like when you are in their ages. I have 3 old friends. They are not really old friends. What I mean here is their age is quite old. They are 80, 85, and 90 years old. Here are their stories and will tell us the secret of life. The first one, Kim, 80. My neighbor. Also, he is one of our major clients of our bank. Despite of his success in business, he still lives in the house that he bought 40 years ago. Even part of the house ruined, he never want to remodel it. He always wear old shabby shoes, plain clothes, and he keeps a simple diet. But he doesn't like anything luxury. But I don't call him stingy because he would generously reward the employees $120 when they get married or bear a child. Kim is a religious Christian and likes to help people. He even sponsors a charity foundation just to help the poor. The second old man, Mr. Hu Zidan, 85, a Mainlander. When he was only 15, he was captured and forced to be a soldier by Kuomintang. Then left his home mainland China from mainland China to Taiwan with the government in 1949. Unfortunately, once he arrived Taiwan, he became a political prisoner for 10 years in the Green Island. What did he do? He did nothing, only that his name was mentioned in a letter between 2 fellow soldiers in Navy. Those 2 soldiers were sentenced to death because of involving in a rebellious conspiracy called Chinese Navy Whitetail Incident in 1949. After 10 years being tortured in prison, Mr. Hu Zhan was finally released and sent back to Kaohsiung, Fengshan. But the police kept harassing him unless he could find a person to guarantee his behavior. How could a mainlander like him find any acquaintance in Taiwan? Without a person's guarantee, he couldn't find any job, couldn't be free at all. His life fell into a very deep trouble, very deep crisis. Then suddenly, it seems that Kim and Mr. Hu Zhan's fate linked together by accident. Somebody told Mr. Hu Zhan that Kim is a good man and likes to help people. So Mr. Hu asked for Kim's help. Although Mr. Hu is a totally stranger, Kim signed a guarantee for him. That's very courageous of him to do that in those quiet age. Think about it. Kim might get himself involved in the same crime and cause himself in great trouble. He might also fall in prison too once he signed for him. But he still did it. What a great man. After that, both of them separated, losing each other for almost 50 years. Mr. Houston was totally free after Kim signed a guarantee for him, and he started the very first translation service company in Taipei, thanks to the 10 years in prison studying English. That's the only thing he could do in jail. He also wrote a book talking about his story in the Green Island called Cross Centuries Entanglement, in Chinese, 跨世纪的纠葛, and won China Times Literature Prize. So it became a little bit famous. Luckily, Kim read the book, so they finally found each other again. Several months ago, Ms. Houston's story is going to be filmed by a publishing company. In order to rebuild the story, they sent a camera crew to Kaohsiung with him. The place for their reunion is set right here on this Yansan Hotel restaurant. Luckily, I was invited because I have read the book and I know all their stories. When I met, I see Kim can no longer walk well because of his back pain. He has to sit on the wheelchair. Mr. Houston still can walk pretty well, but really slow. After all, he's 85. When I met, both of them cried and restated many old, touching stories. Almost at the end of the meeting, the last old man appeared. He is Mr. Deng, Mr. Houston's prison roommate in the Green Island at the time. I forgot to ask what crime he committed, but something surprised us very much. Compared to Kim and Mr. Houston, this 90-year-old man walked sweetly like a young man. He only told us that he was kept in prison for 30 years. After their meeting, I saw these three old men saying goodbye to one another. They are really old and they are all extraordinary. Each of them have their wonderful life story. As I just said, the old people reflect our future images. By looking at them, when I was taking their pictures, I seem to see my own future pictures. Then suddenly something came to my mind that Kim is 80, never in prison, but he's near a wheelchair now. Mr. Houston is 85, 10 years in prison, he can still walk slowly. Mr. Deng is 90 years old, 30 years in prison, and he walks like a young man. If this is a life experiment that takes almost 90 years, what does it tell us? They have three kinds of different ages, and they have three kinds of different health conditions. If the old people reflect our future images, which image you wish you will be like? I guess most of you will say, if I'm 90, I wish to be as healthy as Mr. Deng. But what made him so healthy? That's a good question. But I didn't ask because the answer is so obvious. 30 years in prison would let anyone live like a crack. But who can discipline himself and live so regularly, just like being put in prison for 30 years? I know it's hard, but not impossible. All you need to do is set up your rule and don't break it. It doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in prison for 30 years by committing some serious crime, like cutting children's throat, right? All you need to do is set up a rule, don't break it. Just remember this is a wisdom that comes from a life experiment that takes almost 90 years. Thank you.
Though I heard the story second time now, I am still impressed by the story.